Hey guys, so as those of you who have been watching my recent videos know, I have been living in El Salvador for a little bit over a year now, and this year I have decided to try and document as much of my time here as possible. And I really want to make like a lot of travel videos and just record all of my experiences here because I'm having such a great time. And this last year I didn't really have time to do that because I was working so much, but now I have a lot of free time, so I can travel more and see more of this beautiful country that I now call home. I've been getting a lot of comments asking why I live in El Salvador or how I found El Salvador, why I came here. And every single person I meet in this country, the first thing they ask me is first, where are you from? And then when I tell them I'm from the United States, they ask, why are you here? So I thought maybe it would be a good idea before I start making more videos on my channel to make one, just giving a little bit of background information as to why I am here and why I chose to come to El Salvador. So this story actually happened over the course of maybe 5 years. I first heard of El Salvador in my church youth group. When I was only 17 years old, my youth pastor came to my youth group at church and he said that he had this idea to take a 10-day missions trip to El Salvador, and anyone who wanted to go could sign up, and you just pay like a little bit of money and then we can all go. So it got mentioned to my parents, and they were actually the ones to sign me up, and some of my best friends were going, so I thought that maybe it would be like a fun trip. To be honest, I didn't really even know where El Salvador was. I knew it was somewhere near like South America or Central America, but I didn't really know much about the country, just because I think in the United States I didn't really have many classes on that were focused on foreign cultures or foreign countries, unless they were like countries that had something to do directly with the United States. I knew absolutely nothing about El Salvador, nothing. After youth group, I went home and I Googled it, and of course when you Google El Salvador, unfortunately most of the information that comes up first is negative. Of course, it talks about the gang violence, the poverty, the political problems, maybe the history with the Civil War here, just a lot of negative things. And so, of course, after reading all of that information, I was like, I don't know about this. Why would anyone go there? That doesn't seem like the best place to spend my time. But I had already made the commitment, and my parents had already made the deposit for the trip, and they weren't going to let me cancel it because they thought it would be a good learning experience for me, and that I needed to get out of my country and see a different culture, because in that time in my life I had never even left the United States. I had never traveled abroad. So I was stuck. And as we started fundraising, and the youth pastor, he was really good about preparing us and telling us more about El Salvador, and we were in contact with the missionaries who were living down here that were going to meet up with us and help us, and they gave us a lot of positive information about the country and reassured us that we would be safe and that we would have a nice place to stay. So I wasn't like so scared, and I did become a little bit excited about the trip leading up to it. Okay, so then we get on the plane, we arrive, and first of all, anyone who lives here knows the airport is like a shock when you come out of the doors. I've never seen an airport like that. It's just a sea of humans. Like, there's so many people, and they're all just staring at you, and you can't, like, they're just everywhere. Like, you can't see anything. So, and then the heat, literally, it's like a wall. You come out of the airport is air conditioned, of course, and then you walk out of the airport and it's just like bam in your face, just this heat. So those were the first two things I noticed, and it was just like a little overwhelming, and everyone's holding signs and yelling, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, where are we? But the missionaries took us to the mission, and of course it was a nice building. I felt very safe there. They had security guards and really big fences. But on the road there, I mean, my initial reaction to El Salvador, I don't want to say something offensive, but I guess maybe for someone coming, if I'm going to be honest, for someone coming from the United States who has never been outside of their country, it can be a shock because we kind of live in a bubble and we have all of these things that we take for granted. Like, for example, like clean water or housing, safety, clean roads. I don't know how to describe it. Like, there's just so many things we take for granted. And I guess like on the highway from the airport to where we were staying in San Salvador, of course we were all like, our eyes were glued to the windows because we wanted to see everything. And you see the people living in houses made of metal, just pieces of metal or cardboard or like sticks. They're not put together very well. They don't have floors, it's just dirt. And then on the side of the road you see like children picking up cans or people asking for money, children trying to sell fruit, or women walking up and down with like the really big baskets on their head carrying things that I'm sure are very heavy. And then this is something that I think is really cool. I like that there's cows on the side of the road and horses. I think that's so cool. I love that because I love animals. But I mean, all of it all at once, when you have never seen something like that, it's very shocking. So I was like, why aren't those kids in school? Or why are they having to work? Why do people have to live like that? And it comes from a place of ignorance. I was only 17. I didn't know what the world really looked like outside of the United States, you know, and we are very blessed there. So that was my first reaction to El Salvador, like the first day. But we were there for 10 days and we worked in some local schools doing a vacation Bible school, and that is when I really began to love El Salvador, because the people here get their happiness from another place. Like, as I said, in the United States we're very materialistic and we have a lot of things, so maybe our things are where we get our happiness. But here, not everybody doesn't have so much, you know. Not everyone is poor, I'm not saying that, but I get the impression that people get their happiness from maybe family or food or sharing experiences with each other. And that's something that is not materialistic and something you can't put a price tag on. And I really respected that, and I could see it in all of the little kids. They were so joyful and so happy, and they were so kind to us. That's the thing I love most about El Salvador, is people here are so kind to foreign people. Because I know that I'm not from this country. I mean, they don't have to let me visit here. They don't have to be so accommodating. Because I know, again, in my country, sometimes we're not nice to foreign people. Of course, not everyone, but in general, when someone travels to our country, we expect them to obey by our standards, act how we act, speak how we act. And here people are very forgiving. They don't get offended if you do something that's like culturally wrong. They try to understand you. They welcome you into their homes. They offer you food. They try to speak English, even though Spanish is their native language. They make the effort to communicate in my language, which is so nice because they don't have to do that at all. So yeah, that really, really touched me. Even all of the little children in the schools, they wanted to practice their English with us and play games with us, and they were just so sweet. So of course I fell in love with them. And so then the final day, I don't remember where we went. I can't remember the name, but we went to this lake. It wasn't Coatepeque Lake, it was another lake, but I can't remember. And we went out, we took like these boats out to this island where the missionaries were planning on creating a mission for people who are maybe struggling with drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and they want to get out of that lifestyle. And also it was a place for people who maybe were affiliated with gangs and they needed to like get out of that lifestyle as well. And it was kind of just going to be like a rehabilitation center for anyone who was struggling with anything, whether it was like I said, like gangs, alcohol, drugs, family problems, divorce, orphans, anyone. It was just going to be like a refuge place, and it was on this island away from the city, so it was really beautiful and peaceful and just felt like a safe place. So this is when the story gets kind of funny. Not funny, okay, kind of sad, but like crazy. So the missionary gave us his whole speech on what he was going to do at the island, and ironically it was called Broken. You'll see why that's ironic in a minute. And then he gave us the option of either going back to like the little town and shopping for souvenirs, or we could go for a hike across the island. And honestly, I hadn't gotten to buy any of like the artisan crafts here, so I really wanted to go shopping, but for some reason I decided to go on this hike. And before we left, he was like, okay, now if you are not good at hiking, or if you're not in the best physical shape, do not go on this hike. Like, it's really difficult. It's through a jungle. There's no actual trail. We're just kind of making it up as we go. And if you're not skilled in this, don't go. And this woman volunteered to go with us. And I'm not trying to be rude, but she's just a little bit heavier. Maybe not someone who is hiking all of the time or exercising all the time. So he was trying to warn us because he didn't want us to get hurt, but she insisted. She was like, no, it's fine, I'll go, I can make it, I'm sure I can make it. And so we let her go. We were like, okay, I guess that she really thinks she can do it, so we're gonna trust that she can. So we start hiking, and she's like a little bit in front of me, and we were maybe 25% of the way across the island, and I'm watching her, and her foot like steps on this rock, and the rock moves, and her ankle completely snaps. Like, I could hear the crunch. It was just like, it was broken immediately. And of course she falls and is in terrible pain. And I'm just like, uh-oh. And the missionary turns around, and he, like, the first thing he did, he just like dropped on his knees and started praying, which is a good reaction, but in that situation I was like, well, that's not a good sign. If he's having to ask God for help right now, then we're in a bad situation. So of course, like in El Salvador, it's not like in the United States where you can just call an ambulance or call a helicopter. No, we're on an island in the middle of the jungle with no, I don't even think we had cell phone reception, so we were trapped there by ourselves. And we didn't know how to carry her because, like I said, she was a little bit bigger. She was a grown woman, and it was a long distance that we had to carry her through really difficult terrain. And that summer, luckily, I was actually working as a lifeguard. Now, that does not mean I am a medical professional in any way. I had no idea what I was doing. I had only been a lifeguard for 3 months. But once upon a time, I had a training, and they taught us about making splints and like stretchers. So I had the bright idea to make a stretcher, first of all, so we could carry her. So we cut down some bamboo and small trees and some vines from those trees, and then we like tied the sticks together, and the men took their t-shirts off, and we tied those to make like the bed so she could lay down on it. And then I got some smaller pieces of like little trees and vines, and I wrapped it around her ankle just to hold it in place so that when we're carrying her, it's not shaking and getting even worse. And it worked. So that was the blessing, because at least we had the resources to carry her, and at least there was enough of us to carry her. Otherwise, I don't know what we would have done. But let me tell you, we carried this woman for 5 or 6 hours through the jungle. And as I said before, El Salvador is a hot place, very hot, very tropical and humid. So we were sweating. It was like the middle of the day, like 12 o'clock when we began. And at one point, I'm not very strong, so they gave me the job of, they gave me a machete and I was like whacking through the trees to make a path for us. We were having to like carry her and like push her underneath barbed wire fences. We were going through cow pastures, down mountain sides. Oh my gosh, it was crazy. And then when we got a little bit closer to the boat, which was waiting for us on the other side, the missionary asked me and another girl to run back and forth getting water for the men from the boat. And one time when I was running, this is like the part of the story where I don't really know how to explain it. One time when I was running, I just stopped on this hill and I could see like the water from the lake and the mountains in the background, and the sun was a little bit lower in the sky and it just looked golden. And I don't know how to explain it. Like, up until that point, I was happy here and I thought this was a good experience, but I did not think El Salvador was a place I wanted to be permanently. But looking at that, I just got, and I know that a lot of people who watch this video probably aren't spiritual, and I'm not always the best as far as spirituality, but I really feel like that was a moment from God, because I don't know how else to explain it. I just felt this overwhelming peace and security and happiness and just like pure joy for a country and a place. And it was so strange. And it's 5 years later now, and even to this day, when I see, I've traveled to multiple countries, a lot of countries, and I've never had that happen to me. I've traveled all over the United States and I've never felt that way. So yeah, in that moment, that's when I was like, I gotta come back. This is my place. I need to come back here. And then when we carried the woman back to the boat, she was fine. Not fine, she was broken, but at least we got her to safety. And then on the boat ride back, the missionary, I don't know why he said this either, that was weird. He just looked at me and he was like, hey, I don't know if you would ever come back here, but if you want to, I'll give you an internship. You don't have to apply, sign up or anything. He's like, just come and we have a place for you. And that was weird, because after I had that moment, I didn't tell anyone about it, and then he said that like right away. And so yeah, I just felt like I needed to come back. So that was the beginning of me being in El Salvador. And from that point on, I came back the next summer. Actually, the day after my high school graduation, I came back for 4 months, and I worked with the missionaries in their organization. I taught English classes and with some of the inner city kids. I worked with another organization which would give out food to homeless people on certain nights. We did like construction, Bible schools, you name it, all kinds of things. So I was here for 4 months for that. Then I came back another summer for 3 months and I did the same thing. And then finally this past year, last May, I was graduating from my university and I was majoring in psychology, and I was trying to double major in Spanish, but that didn't work. That's why the video is in English. I couldn't learn it. I'm trying, guys. I'm gonna learn Spanish, I promise, eventually, maybe like in a year from now. So, honestly, I kind of wanted to study in Costa Rica, but it's really expensive. It was like $15,000 for 4 months, and I'm like, that's stupid. And then I was like, wait a minute, El Salvador is right next to Costa Rica. I should just go to El Salvador. So I got an internship in Santa Ana at a private school there. And I worked there for almost 5 months. And they had like a psychological sensory room, which was perfect for my major, which I'm so shocked because I think they're the only school, at least in Santa Ana. if not in all of El Salvador, that has that type of psychological sensory room. So that was awesome for me and for my major. So then I graduated, and of course I loved being here, and since I had finished my degree, I was like, I don't really want to go back to the US. So then I looked for another job, and I got a job at another private school in Santa Ana again, because for my internship they weren't paying me. I was just living off of money I had saved, and they couldn't pay me because they're a Christian school and they don't have a lot of money. And I was happy working for free. I actually liked that job more, but I needed money to live. You know, I have to pay rent, I have to pay for food, transportation, and I had $0 by the end of the 5 months. So I found another job, and I worked at that school, and it was the worst experience of my life. I hated it. The kids were awesome, but just like the administration was terrible. It was just a very negative environment, and there was always problems. So I was like, I can't handle this, I can't stay here. And there was something that happened right before Christmas when I was going home to visit my family that I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this anymore. But again, I wanted to stay in El Salvador, so I was like, I need to find another way to stay here. So I literally, while I was at my last job, I was online like Googling, how can I work online or something? And I found a job, which is literally a blessing from God. It's the best job I've ever had. I'm teaching little Chinese kids English online, and they're so precious. They're so cute. So yeah, that's how I live now. And yeah, so I'm probably gonna be in El Salvador at least for 1 more year. As I said in the past, I was working at these schools every day, all day, so I didn't really have time to make videos. But now, because of the time difference between El Salvador and China, I wake up really early, like 3:30 a.m., and then I'm done working at 10 a.m. So I have all day to make videos or go places and explore, you know. So, oh my gosh, this was really long, but that was like 5 years condensed into 22 minutes. I could have said it even longer. But if you guys have any questions about, any more questions about why I'm here, if I didn't clarify enough, feel free to leave a comment below. Or if you're someone like me in the United States watching this and you want to know how to live abroad, I'd be happy to give, maybe I should make a video on that sometime, on how to live in another country. I will say that I couldn't be here if it weren't for like my boyfriend's family and my roomie in Santa Ana. I had 2 of them, and they helped me a lot. As I said, the people here are the reason I'm still in this country. El Salvador is special, but what makes it special is the people. And if you haven't been here before and you come here, that's what you'll remember the most, is the people of El Salvador. So yeah, I hope you guys like this video. Sorry I talked so much. That's like the longest video I've ever made. All right, bye guys.